Yeah,
And
so
none of the weird
that's a
thing
lot
is
of mouths to feed that we're going to not have food for if we're not careful.
none of you noticed that until Evie just pointed it out. And now when you're looking around at all of the bustle in the village, I mean, you've sent guys out to build a trough, and there are people still gathered around the church. You have no idea how you missed it. Evie's the only one who noticed. So there's no secret way to get these men from the church into the dungeons in the manor house unnoticed.
No,
So
we
people in the
don't need to.
village watch as they're kind of frog marched into the manor house, and the gossip continues. There's all kinds of stories about what the dungeons are like.
So after we're done with this, I have something I need Edmont and Ekon to do for me, and I will tell you the two. I'll tell the two of you that when you get a free moment.
Now, the only other thing
Yeah.
I think we have to resolve immediately before we go on to this evening or beyond is what's to be done with the shepherd boy that Victor is babysitting.
Yep.
Oh, Victor's in charge of him. Keep babysitting him.
Oh, congratulations, Victor. It's a boy.
Oh, so sweet. So, all right. So Victor will try and find out why he's afraid to go talk to the black-haired woman.
People here are really suspicious of the Vistani in general, it seems like.
And this boy is no different. She offered him spells, he says, in assistance, and this is known to be an affront in blood to the Night Mother. That he would rather die in the captivity of his slavers, of the bitch queen, Evelyn, rather than subject himself to spells and lose the Night Mother's favor.
Okay, we can work with that.
Victor's
I
like,
want business.
reasonable. That's what I was thinking too.
I want business cards to
Absolutely
say
on board.
Evelyn Veritas, bitch queen.
So Victor will ask the kid if he is able to identify those who attacked. Victor's going to try and find out sort of what happened to this kid, how he stumbled here, why he's in this condition.
Make a
Who did this to
charisma
him?
investigation check.
Charisma check.
Charisma investigation. So add your charisma bonus and then add your proficiency bonus if you're trained in investigation.
I'd still just like to say fuck you.
To the kid?
No, for your charisma. That's a 9.
A 9. You can tell
You
that the
have
kid
your,
is grateful for his food, and he has toned the vitriol down a little bit, but you are still his slaver. You've stolen his goats. He's placing the blame on you and your family as the nobleman here for the actions of your small folk. And
I
you
mean,
know
that's
what?
fair.
He's got a point.
Yeah, no, Victor tells him that you're not wrong, and I would like to work with you to make it right. Because obviously, we in this village are not shepherds. You are. There are a number of goats. It's not in our best interest to have these goats die. You are the only one here who is qualified to tend to them. I would like for you to believe me when I tell you that there is no way for you to get home, but I'm afraid that's something you're going to have to find out on your own. And you've been wandering around for days.
He insists that you're a liar and a slaver, and if you really have his well-being in mind, you will rescind the magic of your mists and send him back to the court of King Giugiano. And if you can't do that, then make an insight check, actually. I know you're good at these too.
Tough insight, I'm great at it. That'd be a 6.
Okay. And then after that, he kind of clams up. He no longer goes all the way back into the invective that he was using a few moments ago. You did bring him food and water, and you cut his bonds. But for the moment, he seems resigned. Like, he knows he's not going to escape from this spot, but he's also not going to give you anything else useful. And about this time, the rest of your party is approaching the manor, having had their own adventures in Goatland and Church World.
So are there any rooms or beds that this kid could stay the night in?
I mean, you
Like,
could have
I mean-
Rush's place for him. I mean, you could make a comfortable spot for him in a safe place in the village.
Okay, so Victor's going to grab a servant walking by and tell him to prepare a room for our guest.
Okay, yeah, that could be done. I mean, currently Koyana is staying in a room in the manor house. That's still correct, yes?
I
Yes.
thought she was
Yeah.
leaving, but yeah.
She
Well-
hasn't said she's leaving yet.
She said she would leave next time men of the family came around. She would join the next caravan.
I mean, we're not going to kick her out. She can stay until she's ready to leave.
Yeah, Victor wants Koyana to be treated like nobility, basically.
So you
I
have
don't
the
know
kid
about that.
led inside, and you have a room that is made comfortable so he can go and rest himself and have access to food and water and whatnot.
Yeah, and he'll tell the servant that if the kid wants more food or water to get it for him.
By that evening, Demetrius makes himself known to you.
Mhm.
He comes forth, and he's exasperated. And the man who comes with him is Abernathy. And Abernathy, I mean, it would be difficult to call Abernathy angry, even at the worst of times. I think it's fair to say that you've seen the man during the worst of times. He's always tries to keep a positive spin on things. But you can see Abernathy's like at the end of his rope. Because when you guys left, you essentially left him in charge. The problem
Yeah.
is people know that he's not of the Duchess's household. And they don't respect him with any level of authority that he's used to back in Brennanine. He and Demetrius saw the wisdom in collecting the goats in the pen when the first few were found in the forests. But after giving the orders to collect the goats, that things ballooned out of control from there. As for the fake Aethar, Demetrius didn't do anything to step in because he's not learned in the way of the Etherine faith, and he was given no direction by anybody on what to do on that front. Abernathy, of course, took Pokeen's mass as an incredible offense, grave insult. So Abernathy's
Well, you
kind of
could have-
very angry at the situation, whereas Demetrius, hat in hand, apologetically, he didn't realize the goat thing was going to get so out of control, and he wasn't expecting to find the shepherd in the woods.
Well, regrettably, now we have to deal with it. But you've definitely done a great service to the village for collecting these animals. So I can tend to them in some regard.
While my cousin is correct in that overall your deed was good, the manner in which you allowed people in this village to violate guest right, tying that poor boy up and not feeding him, that is unacceptable.
And he, begging your pardon, but how was I to stop them?
Genie has a gun, do you?
And he shakes his head.
We should. We
What we need is a
Militia.
not a militia. Oh hell no.
a little,
We need law
but
enforcement.
mostly we need a very clear
We need rules.
sense of authority that if we're not here and Abernathy is in charge, Abernathy speaks with the words of the Duchess.
What is it called? Chain of command.
And-
we need a clear chain of command.
Abernathy and Demetrius exchange glances. Abernathy says, well, that's precisely why we've come to speak to you. Demetrius had the idea that Evelyn would name me sheriff.
Demetrius?
And Demetrius says, well, our village in Falkovnia, there was a sheriff named there, and he had deputized some men to keep the Lord's peace.
We'll have
And
a
are
sheriff
there
lose
men
them
you
all.
trust here, Demetrius, to follow your orders?
Oh, they're not saying name Demetrius sheriff. They're saying name Abernathy
Oh.
sheriff.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
I trust Demetrius, but I don't know that he has. He's a
But
carpenter. I don't know that he has like the
Yeah, no,
qualifications.
I'm okay with Abernathy. You're saying Abernathy
Yeah.
sheriff?
Yeah, Abernathy's good at commanding men. He can. I also trust his judgment.
He can also murder a commoner.
Can you not say
Yeah, I
that
can
out
see
loud,
where
please?
murder a commoner.
Abernathy has a nose for law enforcement.
Wow.
And
Damn.
that was
Did you say
rude.
that out loud?
That was rude. Also, I think that does Demetrius how do the villagers listen to Demetrius? Like, do they? Because he's been kind of the go-between. Are they listening to him?
He is functionally the village reeve. He is the voice of the common folk, because you can't listen to all the common folk all the time. But
Right.
he doesn't have any actual authority over them either. Like, he can't go issue them orders. If he were to come down from the manor and say, I've just come back from the Duchess, and she said everybody's got to take their pants off, then people would probably take their pants off because the Duchess has ordered it. But if he came down from the manor while the Duchess isn't home and says, you know what, I've decided everybody takes their pants off, they'd all be, no, go sit and spin, Demetrius.
So
I
here's my thought: is that the word just popped into my head from Curse of Strahd. Do we need a burgomaster in this situation?
I don't know what that is.
It's a mayor. Do we need a mayor?
I mean, I'm the mayor, aren't I?
No, I think we should have an appointed representative of the common folk, and I'm pretty okay with Demetrius being that for right now. I don't think that they need to start electing someone.
I mean, in the medieval, like mayor was a hereditary position. So like he was the mayor, and when he dies,
Right, but
his
we're
son.
from a republic, so...
That's true.
Right. They're not.
We'll appoint for the first one, and then I guess we'll hold an election later.
Do they elect mayors in the
We can decide
Republic
to
of
do.
Gran Francisco?
This is
My read on
feudalism.
Gran Francisco is that the noble families have elections, and everybody else just, whatever.
abides by?
I think the mayor is whoever I say is the mayor.
Like we appoint. I guess I'm okay with it being an appointed position.
Edmund's like, you know what, let's try to survive this first winter, then we can decide who gets to be the next mayor.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
the Constitution of New Warren.
Congratulations, you're the mayor.
Basically.
Slap him on the shoulder.
Oh yeah, for the time
Okay,
being,
we give you a fancy sash, but we have no fancy cloths. So sorry.
So are you offering this station to Demetrius?
He's the most qualified. I don't think we offer. I think we tell him he's the mayor.
And this causes him no small level of distress.
Well, like, don't worry. I'll invent antacids.
He
hold
says,
on.
forgive me, my lords, but surely there is another man for this position.
Can you name him?
Alas, I cannot, but...
The rest of the people of the village trust you. I know you might not feel like you're up to it, but we all have faith in you.
And if we find someone better, then, it's not like a lifetime appointment.
And he
Just try it for now.
nods.
Just until we find a real one.
I mean, my interest is in keeping order when I'm out dealing with the myriad problems that are happening every day outside of the immediate territory of our village. So
I have a first job for him, if it's okay with my sister.
Demetrius is going to be our geek.
What's
hold on.
his first
Basically,
job?
Well, I was gonna say like, a census.
yeah, census is a good idea. Basically, Demetrius, all I'm asking you to do is to be officially the voice of the people and let us know when something's going on. And Abernathy, when we are not here, will have the authority to act to keep order. That's basically how I see this working.
Abernathy nods at that. He says, I believe that's a wise decision. And I think working together we can make a prosperous community.
That's my intention.
Demetrius looks like he's definitely going to need those antacids.
Right. So your first job is an extensive is a census.
Can Demetrius read and write?
Not in Darkanese. He can speak Darkanese, but he can't. He can only read and
We
write.
can, if he writes it in another language, we can read it.
Yeah, and we can switch it over until he learns Darkanese.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Demetrius is a carpenter, and I kind of assume that's what he would rather be doing with his time, rather than have
He's
to
a
be
coffin
politician.
maker. He's a coffin maker, not a carpenter.
So I'm
Demetrius,
not looking to give him a ton of like extra work on top of like his woodworking that we also need him to be doing.
again, he's
So-
a coffin maker. He's not just woodworking. Like, is Evie avoiding the term for some reason?
Oh, I thought that when we first met him, he said that he was a good woodworker.
He's a coffin
Yeah,
maker.
because he's a coffin maker.
He makes
Coffin
coffins
maker.
out of
Some
wood.
some skills transfer over, some don't.
So
He is exactly the guy we need right now.
Demetrius asks of Evie, and says, well, in the shortest term then, what shall I tell the people is to become of Athar, begging your pardon, Athar, but of Pokeen and his brothers.
They're going to be given the opportunity to pray to Air and see the error of their ways, and they will be guided in this prayer by me. And Air shall decide their fate, as Evelyn and Air together shall decide their fate.
Am I
One thing,
permitted to speak freely, my lords?
always.
Are there, forgive me, but are there implements of torture below the manor?
I hope not.
Yes,
Oh,
but
no.
that's just because we haven't removed them yet. We didn't think we would need the area. We're not using them. I've already tried to make it a little bit more homey down there.
A little bit more homey, so like
In the dungeon,
you put a
in this-
plan out by the Iron Maiden.
Yeah, some mood lighting next to the rack is fine.
in this horrifying medieval feudal dungeon in Ravenloft.
We put some
Yeah.
roses by the bloodstains.
It's
to
real
highlight the
teary
memories.
down there now.
Yeah, no kidding.
They are not to be harmed. They are just being held until I can have them testify as to what they understood. There's something I want to make very clear. The light of air is for all, not only for those who can pay. If anyone asks you to pay money to accept air's light, that is incorrect. And I need to know if this man was acting in a way he felt was correct but was not, or if he was attempting to defraud our people.
Honestly, it sounds like we need to have some rules written down.
Demetrius says, that being the case, regardless of Pokeen's intents, which he could not speak to, he does not know the man's heart, but he's well loved among the villagers, and harsh punishment even deserved in the eyes of Air and in the eyes of the Duchess, might be perceived badly.
Keep that in mind. He seems like if he is, I mean, I think the best course of action.
I had intended to go and try and just determine exactly what's in his heart tonight.
I think
if
the
he-
best course of action is just to have Ekon actually train them as A3.
I mean, if he was making a mistake, then we would just return the money and maybe he serves like a penance. But if he was trying to fraud people, then chances are I'm throwing him out of this village.
That's a little harsh. I would say maybe working, but we haven't come to a trial yet, Demetrius. So there will be a lawfully administered and decided fate for him.
Make an insight check, Ekon.
Sure.
And Demetrius, he asks whether he should dispel the notions that there are implements of torture beneath the manor, even though there clearly are. Like, should he go back to the village and lie to people and say, look, they don't actually have torture devices?
That's a 20 on insight. I mean, I was hoping to get them removed and broken down for materials tonight. Now that it's suddenly
Relevant.
Here's
relevant.
the thing, Ekon, you're talking a lot about, like, you're really putting a lot of emphasis on, we're going to really get to the bottom of this. We're going to have, like, a fair trial, really determine whether this guy was at fault. You could tell Demetrius could not care less. He's really concerned that the villagers know that there is a torture dungeon down there. That's really what he wants to focus on.
Okay. No, I would not tell them that there's a torture dungeon since we don't have a dungeon we intend to
Demetrius.
torture people in.
Very well.
We'll be
the question-
disassembling as all of those devices tonight if we can.
Hold on, Demetrius. Be up front. Is it a good thing or a bad thing to have a torture dungeon beneath?
It would not be for me to say whether such a... And Abernathy interrupts him. This is a bad thing, clearly. This is not done to people. Why are we discussing this?
We're in a different. I just don't know what their the expectations of the small
Really,
folk
torture
are in this
doesn't
land.
work.
Listen, hear me out. Obviously, the last people who ran this village made use of it. Maybe it's not such a bad idea to have it as long as we have very clear guidelines on when to use it.
I'm not
It
advocating.
doesn't do
Burn
anything.
people.
It's ineffective.
I'm not advocating the torture. I'm just like wondering what kind of expectations are, like, you know, are they going to think less of my sister if she doesn't have the torture dungeon underneath?
I'd
That's
say
all.
half of them will, half of them won't.
So, aside from torture being ineffective, it's also a complete affront to the Aetherine faith. Like, it's
Yes.
really against
Okay.
the rules to torture somebody.
All right.
It's one of the tenets,
God,
guys.
God really hates that.
So,
Okay,
so counterpoint though, what happened to Chrisen to cause him to get beat the fuck up after he left our care?
Oh, it's against the
Yeah, and
rules.
why do you think Gladden broke him out?
Not saying it doesn't happen.
I mean, burning someone at the stake is kind of torturous too, and Aether is all about that.
Yeah, in some circles.
Okay, so Evie says you have my word as the Duchess that he will not be tortured.
I have an idea. If we really don't want to have a torture dungeon, we can take all the implements and we can have a bonfire outside so that all villagers can publicly see the objects being destroyed. That should improve the morale, right?
Abernathy likes that idea. Turning over a new leaf. Destroying the implements of the furious past and bringing in a bright new era.
I'm okay with that.
Good idea.
I mean, what sort of punishment should we have in our village?
I mean, the one guy who stole seeds, we sentenced him to hard labor.
No, we sentenced him to the same labor as anyone else. We sentenced the benefits of his labor to go back to the village and reparations.
Yeah, the
Everyone here has to work hard. He just doesn't get to personally profit from it for a while because he made a mistake.
the sentence for him was he had to continue working, but he was not himself allowed to make use of any tobacco for the winter.
No one in the village doesn't already work hard.
So in the worst case, exile or hanging?
Fair.
No, do we want to hang people or do we just want to exile them? They both have the same result.
No, they don't. In the worst case, I'm all for burning, but that's just...
Burning, okay.
So we're going to have this bonfire tonight where the to be clear, like the ineffective and probably not very useful torture implements rusting away in your dungeon
Right.
are brought up and out and destroyed.
Yep.
Okay.
If there's anything in there we can salvage, we can do that. But
We can
make
do
a
that
show
after
of
the
it.
fire. It's not gonna burn iron.
Yeah, some of the iron might be salvageable. Some of the
Yeah,
metal
like
pieces,
a
nails and things.
rack, like the turning rack, or
Yeah, we can
whatever.
melt it down later. We can melt the slag down later if we need it.
I feel like any of the workers that have been like working on the interior of the thing, like that's instructions that was like already, like repurpose. Like, oh hey, there's like an Iron Maiden, repurpose that for nails or whatever. We just hadn't got to it because
Yeah, this hadn't gotten to it yet.
and I just gesturing at everything.
I will let one of you make me an insight check. Make this at advantage because all 5 of you are going to be witnessing this burning of the village torture dungeon.
So the other thing I would suggest is when we do the burning, we have this great big fire. Ekon can use that as a background for a sermon about air and lay down some basic rules.
I think I have the highest insight, so I will make it. Mine is +8. Anybody have higher than that?
Let me
Not
see.
with my 10 wisdom.
I think the only person who competes for that is Destil, but he hasn't spoken up yet.
No.
So I got 16.
And is Ekon making this a kind of religious service? Or is this going to...
Yeah, he'll use it to reinforce some of the ideas. For one of the biggest being, that torture is very much against what Air approves of.
All right, make
The
me
Eternal will not torture people.
call this either religion or performance. Your choice.
I'm going to go ahead and have cast enhance ability because I had other reasons to do that for later. So I'm going to do religion. That's a religion of 19.
19. Okay. Successful service. I mean, the fire really gets going well. Even the weather seems to be in your favor. You guys become convinced that, well, of a couple of things. First of all, the villagers seem convinced that you're not going to torture anybody. They've never seen something like this before, but like, why would the Lord drag their rack and their Iron Maiden and whatnot and burn them in front of the whole village and give this whole speech about how it's ungodly if they didn't mean it? So they're convinced that nobody's going to get tortured on your watch. There are elements in your village, though, who think that was the wrong call. Who know that as the village grows, there's going to be people who break the law, there's going to be fights, there's going to be assaults, there's going to be disagreements, there's going to be just bad people. And if you can't put bad people on the rack, then what are you going to do with them? So you've convinced people that you're not going to torture them, but you're probably going to have to convince at least some of the villagers they need more work to learn that this is a good thing.
Boy, like, they just jump straight to 11 right there. It's like, oh yeah, this person's bad. Straight to the rack.
Well, keep in mind, these people grew up in Ravenloft. Working land.
24 is the only thing on television in Raven.
Right. Like the last lord that they served probably was not from a enlightened, fairly liberal urban society
Democracy.
where you don't
Lawful
torture
good.
people lawfully.
Yeah.
I'm sure Evelyn is the most progressive duchess they've ever heard of.
I mean, to be fair, your sister does wave a gun around, so it's like we'll call it a wash.
I mean, we killed the Lucaru. They should know that we're not afraid of anyone. No one's going to come in here and start telling us what to do. We are still in charge.
Except for all the people that have come in here and told us what to do.
So everybody go ahead and take the benefits of the long rest for tonight. Is there anything else anybody's going to do?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, you
Ekon
go
go
first,
first.
Treble.
I heard Ekon first.
Oh, okay. Yep. So I want a Treble. Can I get an enhance ability charisma? And I have my own enhance
Sure.
wisdom. And then
Take
I
it.
would like to go down to the dungeons. I'd like to have a very long and probing chat with the two of them and to try and figure out exactly what they were trying to do and if I think that it would be worthwhile to give them more instruction in religion as part of the sentencing.
I think you're going to need Zone of Truth.
Well, that'll be part of the trial, but
Okay.
this is more like trying to guide them, trying to guide the conversation, This is Ekon trying to get them to the point where he can convince himself that this is a good idea.
Give me a charisma investigation check,
Got it.
followed by an insight check.
Yep. So charisma investigate is investigation, no proficiency. 14.
And what was the insight?
Insight 2. So insight is going to be a 27.
Okay.
Wow.
So what you learn is that Pokeen and his two brothers were with the train as it came from Castle Avernus. So they were among the men who were gathering lumber and building the wall and huddling inside the long hall as you guys were fighting off the werewolves. Pokeen had attended many of your masses as you were giving them as the church was being repaired, and he became convinced that the best way he could help the village was to complete the repairs of the church and ensure that the people weren't left adrift while the Aethar was off adventuring. He thought he had a pretty good handle on the Etherine Church based on the masses you gave. And he also thought it would be a very good thing to collect silver because every church he's ever seen in every village where he's lived or passed through do this sort of collection. The Aetherine do as well, just not in this same manner.
Yeah. Okay.
So it seems
tells me
and
what I think I need to know.
it seems like his intentions were good. It also definitely seems he's just a natural con man. He can convince anybody of anything. And he does have a fair amount of silver that he had collected over the past... You guys were gone, what, like a week or so?
I think it was 2 days each direction.
But
Plus however long we were in the tree.
he tells you his plan was to put the silver to use once traders started coming through, probably after the first winter, to secure supplies and things for the village and for the church in particular. Whether or not you believe him is up to you. But that's what he says the silver was for.
Need I remind you of Ekon's ideal?
I mean, he rolled a 27. I think you're...
This guy...
Okay. That's what I need to get.
Yeah, with that insight, this man could definitely be trained in the tenets of the Etherine, and he could almost certainly get a lot more converts than you could.
Okay.
The other two men are his more dim-witted brothers. They just love their brother, and they go all along with... You get the sense this is not the first cockamamie scheme they've had over the years. What was Jeannie doing tonight?
Well, since Ekon is off that, I guess I'll just grab just Edmont.
What's up?
I need you, because you got the ring. You're holding the ring of X-ray vision.
Mm,
It requires attunement. You're attuned to it.
yeah.
I need you to draw my heart. And I need you to keep it quiet and don't tell my sister. And then we'll get
Okay.
Ekon involved. and
Ekon,
then
are
we
you
can-
trained in medicine?
Yes.
Not Ekon, Edmont.
No.
Okay. Edmund, you have a very general, loose idea of what the insides of a human body should look like, and frankly, it disgusts you because it's like just about like a bunch of sloppy guts and stuff.
Yeah.
So you could use the X-ray ring to try to look inside through Jeannie's flesh and draw what you see. But two things for sure is one, you wouldn't be able to identify any anomalies, and two, a bastard with a straw hat would show up in the picture.
Okay, then
Yeah.
I need you to give the ring to Ekon and have him meet me later so he can attune to the ring. Please.
Sure.
If you don't feel like that.
Sure, but I
and
want that back. But I want that back for my brother.
I mean, that's between you and him. To be honest. Although, if you gave it to me, I could stick a scroll in it and then...
No. Nope.
Edmund
Just
really
immediate-
wants this X-ray ring.
You know what's really funny, Brickrow, is you gave me this really cool class feature I can't use.
Nice.
Because you said that I have to be attuned to the item.
Mm-hmm.
Almost none of the infusions I can make require attunement, and I have no magic items that require attunement.
I thought all
many
infused
pages
items
in the
required
feature?
attunement.
Nope.
All right, let's. Well, I can address this right
We
now.
have to.
That's
We have to
not-
revise.
Just one of the reasons why I haven't used it.
I think my intent originally was that you would be able to use it on infused items because I thought for some reason Alex's infused items always required attunement.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Why don't you just change it to infused or attuned?
I'll
'cause
say
some of 'em-
so. Pick an infused item that you want to use the feature on, and then that
Uh-huh.
particular item, for as long as you're using the feature, requires attunement.
Is it singular? Because the way it's written now, it sounds like I could do it to any number of items. Either's fine. I'm just
when I asked
clarifying.
before the session, before we go live, hey, does anybody have like rules questions for me?
I forgot. Okay. It came up because this item requires attunement.
Mhm.
We can put this off till later. It's not a big deal. It's
Mhm.
not gonna come up. It's fine.
Let me pull up the. Is it this?
Do we want to do a break while you do this?
So, when you attune to a magic item that does not have charges, you may permanently imbue it with the magic of a spell scroll. So, the intent is that you can do this with up to 3 items because it requires you to be attuned to them. I'll
Right.
say that an infused item that you create as an artificer that does not require attunement, if you want to use it in this way, requires attunement. So you
Okay,
can do it with
that's fair.
3 items.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that was my original intent with the feature.
Okay. That's
Okay.
fair.
Yeah,
It's fair.
No, but
I
since
mean,
my
it shouldn't be fair. I gave up my soul for it and all of my blood.
Is anybody else doing anything tonight before the next dawn?
I want somebody
Victor is
watching
gonna
the
go.
shipper.
Victor?
Victor is going to go talk to Koyama and find out what's been going on.
What's Evie doing?
Evie wants somebody watching the shepherd just to make sure he doesn't. I mean, he's talking a little bit like he wants to kill us all, so I just want to keep an eye on him.
He's a 14-year-old scrawny kid who's been violently treated.
Malnourished.
He's not going to put up a fight to anybody, regardless of what he's talking.
Okay.
Koyana has little to say on the situation. She's kind of aloof about it. Villagers being villagers.
Has she had any visions or the like that she would like to share with us?
No, as it happens.
Okay, then Victor will tell her the story of their latest adventure and the red vines and falling down a hole over and over again.
Let's go ahead and take the benefits of the long rest.
Brother, I'll come to you in private about that, about Jeannie's request, and give you the ring. Say, hey, listen, I want this back.
Oh yeah, sure. Obviously, in the morning, I cast 2 lesser restorations, and I get my spell slots back from Channel Divinities.
When you visit Trieste to do it this morning, you see that her infection has already been miraculously healed. And she's very cagey about why she no longer needs the spell.
Let me know when Victor finds out about that.
She's also tries to bend the conversation back to, now that she doesn't have to continue traveling and dungeon delving, that her cousin has approached her as being the first of his deputies, as his new role of sheriff of the village.
Will she let me do a medicine check to actually inspect her and make sure that I agree that it's been dealt with?
Yeah, and you find no trace of it. It's miraculous healing, just like she says.
Well, you'd have to ask my cousin, but I'm pretty sure that you'd make a good deputy.
Well, I mean, she doesn't need Evie's permission for this, because Abernathy was named sheriff, and the sheriff gets to name his deputies. This is a role she's excited about performing, but it's not something that she could do if she had to leave with you guys every week to go off on some new adventure.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's healed. Given that it was ready to kill you before, I would ask that you come to me for the next week each morning so I can just make sure that it has nothing's... And at that point, I'll be satisfied.
Yeah, of course. She agrees to that. And it's up to you whether you tell Victor about this or not. Because he needs the same spell in the morning.
No, I won't tell Victor today because I would have done Victor first. I'll tell him tomorrow.
Victor will ask about it if he sees Trieste walking around.
Can you do the ring thing next?
Yeah.
So you're going to attune to the X-ray ring and then look inside of Jeannie's guts?
Yep. Cast Enhance
Edmont will
ability
be there.
wisdom on myself for it too.
Edmont will be on hand just to be, because he's mildly curious as to what has got Evie all spooked, or what's got Jeannie all spooked.
Edmont's like, I need to get my ring back so I can get back to looking at all the boobs in the village.
Well, not so much that, but...
So I'm going to describe this in terms that I'm fairly sure my players will understand, but that will be anachronistic in the fiction of the world. I still think it's the best explanation to go.
Sure.
Looking inside of a person with the X-ray ring is like in Metroid Prime when you look through a wall with the X-ray scope, more or less. Looking inside Jeannie with the X-ray ring is more like looking with that weird like sound visor from Metroid Prime 2. Different, but in a way that's very difficult to articulate.
Okay.
You're still able to identify the shapes of all the organs she's supposed to have. There's nothing there that shouldn't be there, and there's nothing missing that should be there. But looking around the room, you look over at Edmont's guts in the room and whoever else is available, and something is different about Jeannie's insides.
Are there, like, mechanisms? Is her heart, like, beating?
I mean, there are mechanisms in Edmont's body cavity, for example.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, it's almost like looking at the same thing with 2 different Metroid visors.
Okay.
So what
Well,
you're
I
saying is
can't-
when you look at Edmont, you get A, and when you look at Jeannie, you get B?
More like you get A prime.
I can't, Jeannie, I can't really describe what this looks like. I lack the vocabulary? It's bizarre.
The next appropriate thing to do would be to do a full autopsy.
We just burned all the torture stuff too.
Well,
I mean, with the ring, do I think I could actually like slice her open and get a look inside there, and then patch her back up cleanly? Like,
we have enough magical healing. I'm not against this.
Edmund,
Signs.
Edmund, do you have an opinion on this idea of your brother slashing up your cousin and just poking around in there?
I'm absolutely mortified and think, what would mother and father think?
Victor is absolutely in favor of this.
Victor is not in the room.
Victor's not there. So it's the three of them.
Please tell Victor.
brother, I was elbow deep in corpses when I was 8, learning anatomy. It's not as bad, especially with this ring. This is amazing. This will make it so much easier.
Make a medicine check.
So much easier. It was so much easier, brother, if you were just out, smashing bandits. Just be so much easier.
That would be a medicine of 26.
So you're explaining to Edmund, like, look, this isn't... Like, I know what I'm doing. I've been inside of a corpse. I know what is in the human body. I've had formal training on this. But as you're giving the explanation, it occurs to you, what if Jeannie's anatomy is different now? What if it's not the same in some way that I'm not aware of? It's suddenly...
Well, that's why I'm hoping the ring will let me... Also, she does respond to healing spells, even if she doesn't have any blood.
She does. But it does dawn on you that this process might present unknown dangers.
Okay.
That you can't know about until you're already elbow deep in it.
I mean, I'll tell Jeannie that.
I'll sign the release form. I don't care.
Maybe I should work on something that's a little easier to replace, like an arm or a leg, instead of your guts.
I mean, I don't know. Like, all the stuff in the middle is the one making the weird noises, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that weird. It's actually quite rhythmic.
All the stuff in the middle. I like that.
I am not... Jeannie is a engineer. She's not a doctor. She's not an alchemist.
Clearly.
All right. Well, if Jeannie's on board with it, I am willing to do an experimental surgery just to slice her open, get between a pair of ribs, and see what's in there.
Now I'm
I'll have
picturing
nothing to do with that.
I'm picturing like adorable 8-year-old Jeannie walking into like Nigel's study. It's like, Daddy, my tummy hurts. All the middle parts. I don't feel good. So Edmund wants nothing to do with this.
No, I'm out. I will come to collect my ring later.
Are you guys telling Evie and Victor?
No.
No.
God damn you.
Edmont telling
Very much
Evie and
Jeannie's
Victor.
idea not to tell anyone.
I have extracted a promise from Edmont not to tell.
I will have my retainer on hand. He's not, trained in medicine, but he does know a lot about herbs and stuff, so.
Which will be very helpful if you open up Jeannie and there's a bunch of herbs inside.
Right.
I mean,
I'm thinking like if I need like some sort of balm or something, like you'd be able to pull it out.
Victor's retainer is trained in medicine.
We have a couple of healing potions among us. We just borrow them.
I just have to ask, is this like a surgery, a reusing anesthetic, or is Ekon just taking out a knife and cutting Jeannie open?
Just taking out a knife.
Do we hear the screams?
So I guess that's my next question: is where are you performing this surgery?
I need a
in
place
the Giggle
that's
Dungeon.
quiet and without.
The Giggle
Without
Dungeon.
witness.
You have a dungeon, but
Probably,
it's currently occupied by.
We have
Yeah.
we have a Giggle Dungeon for.
I don't like the giggle. Do we have any actual rooms, or just like our partitions of wood and cloth in the?
Yeah, can I point out if you're going to do this in the dungeon where there's going to be screams coming from the dungeon
There's-
after you tell everyone no one tortures there.
We have a cellar in the back that we had started to set up for Edmont for his time of the month.
Wow.
Wow.
What do you want me to call it?
Okay, that sounds good.
So you're going down into the cellar to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And what part of Jeannie are you opening with your knife?
I'm gonna take a look between her 4th and 5th ribs.
Okay. Jeannie, go ahead and just set yourself at 1 hit point, because this is excruciating. It's a lot of damage. He's literally opening your chest cavity. So the assumption I'm working on is that most of the damage you take in a typical fight in D&D are just like surface level wounds or just flesh wounds until you lose that last hit point and get knocked out. What Ekon is doing is carving through your all of the layers of flesh and muscle and tissue, and you do not bleed, but you feel every inch of the pain. Ekon, make a medicine check at disadvantage.
So the enhanced ability just puts that at normal, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, that's what enhanced ability does.
Yep. It's 24.
There's no blood. Here's what you're able to, for sure, acknowledge after a few moments of just opening up the chest cavity. There is a beating heart inside, and you see the other organs and things. And the inside of the cavity is wet, like you would expect the inside of a person's body to be. The organs, rather than being made of flesh or fleshy tissue, almost have the consistency, almost have the texture of burlap or really rough spun cloth. There are veins and arteries that you can see, and you can tell the pulse of something being pumped through them. And you see the rib cage itself. You're able to pry one of the bones up, but it's not made of bone, and you don't know what it's made of. And this is as far as you get before you notice that Jeannie is really going to die if you don't fix the hole.
Can I try to do one more thing while I'm in there?
Let's have Jeannie make a Constitution saving throw first.
Sure. It's not too bad. It's a 14.
A 14? Okay.
Yeah.
I will let you retain your last hit point and not let out a gut-wrenching scream before passing out from the blinding pain. And as Ekon does one last thing.
The last thing I would like to do is choose a vein that I know not to be a major artery in a normal human.
Okay.
Slice it open and get a sample of the fluid.
And your knife does not cut through it.
Okay.
It's like pulling your knife against a hard metal cord.
And I will patch Jeannie up and hit her with a 3rd level healing cure wound.
Okay, go ahead and give her some hit points back.
I would try not to climb anything for a few days if you can help it. So that'll be a 18 hit points.
I need both of you to make me a horror check.
Okay.
I rolled a 13, and I don't know what modifiers it.
I'm just looking for an
are
11
on
or
it.
better.
Okay.
20.
20? And
Yeah.
Ekon got a 13?
Yeah.
Jeannie, you're on the brink of consciousness by the time Ekon is done, and he dulls the pain with the healing spell. The actual injury is going to have to heal naturally, but the healing spell does a lot for the pain and makes sure that you're not going to pass out and die. Seems like you're taking all this in good spirits, all things considered. You didn't really get a good look inside the cavity. You don't really have the angle for that. But I'm going to assume that Ekon was describing what he was seeing.
Yeah.
And even if he's not, the look on Ekon's face as he gets inside and is not faced with what he was obviously expecting, he goes pale as milk. And there's a few moments just as you felt the pain from him reaching in with the tip of his knife and applying pressure to one of the ribs. And there was a moment where you looked in his face and saw he had no idea what he was looking at or what he was doing. Ekon, I can't tell you what conclusion you draw from this, but it has shaken you very deeply. You weren't sure what to expect carving your cousin open and looking inside. But you know what you were supposed to find, and you didn't. And
So
how many
everything's
other
kind of
people?
there.
How many other people of the villagers, of the Vistana, of the folks that you met in the wilderness, are there more of these wrong people with rough spun organs and invincible veins. Are they among you? Are they replacing you? Can you still bleed? And you cast the spells on Genie, and almost unconsciously draw your knife across your own arm, just to reassure yourself. And you do in fact bleed. But Genie, you're now watching in horror as Ekon is gouging into his arm with the knife he just used to open you up.
Oh, whoa, whoa! I'm gonna
That's
yell at him.
sanitary.
And you snap him out of it. And he almost looks like he didn't realize what he was doing.
It's still blood. It's okay. Still bleeding.
I am just going to take all of this, put it in a box, stick that box down here, deep down inside, and just sail up the river denial. And that's how Genie is going to deal with it for now.
So you're going to store the box inside of your mysterious material ribcage underneath your burlap sack of a heart.
Yep.
Got it.
And just sail up the river denial. That's what that 20 gets me. Just absolute rejection of reality.
That's fair enough. Ekon, however, you're 13. You said you got a 13?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're going to be able to come to terms with it, but you cannot join her on the river denial. You have to face what you've seen in some form or fashion.
There are things inside of Genie's body that should not be inside of Genie's body.
Things man is not meant to see.
What is the... And I'll say this will be the final word on it until Genie decides otherwise, but what is the decision on what, if anything, to tell Victor and Evie about what happened?
That's entirely on Genie.
I have extracted promises from both brothers to not tell anybody anything. Whether they break that is up to them, but
do either of you tell Edmont what the outcome of the surgery was, or are we leaving him in the dark on that?
I will do my best to convince Ekon not to tell Edmont what he saw. Keep it.
I don't know if he's going to be able to do that, because he does have to go and give the ring back, and it's still looming pretty large in his mind.
Well, does Edmont ask about it when Ekon goes to return the ring?
Oh, once the conversation turned to cutting Genie open, Edmont was like, "No, I'm not handling this." So Edmont is completely happy to just to have the door slipped under his, or have the ring slipped under his door or something.
So Evie and Victor don't know what happened. Edmont has made it clear he doesn't want to know. Genie is burying it. It's safe to say, Ekon, that you are now carrying 100% of this burden on your psyche. You saw something that you can now talk to about nobody else in your family. And
I think Ekon is going to retire to his chamber and pray for a few hours.
Fair enough.
That is something
he can share it with air.
Genie is going to try to sail up the river of denial, but this is like something that is probably going to. She's just noped out of reality right now.
Let's let it fester for a few days and see what comes of it.
Yeah. Basically,
what are Evie and Victor tending to this next day? Work has begun on this large goat trough outside of the city, the larger goat pen.
So Victor's ultimate goal is to get the goat herder to join and be a prosperous citizen of the village managing the goats.
Is Evie going to assist with that goal? Are you enlisting the Duchess's help with this?
He will tell Evie what he wants because he thinks it's a good idea.
What does Evie think is a good idea?
I mean, what I want to know, did this poor kid come here from somewhere else in Darkon where this missed, or was he pulled out of some other multiverse like we were, and there's no way for him to ever get back home?
Well, based on what he was saying about how if we want to be nice, we'll dispel the mist for him, he's not from these parts at all. Now, it could be another part of this same realm, or it could be another realm like ours. I don't know, but either way, he is not from here.
I mean, if I ask around the village, the king he mentioned, George is something. Does anyone know what that is?
Make me an investigation check.
I'm not good at these.
Can I help you?
Victor can assist.
Okay. But you should make the check then, Victor, because my investigation is bad.
McDohl, your dice are terrible.
Well, that's what you get for using them, nerd.
How'd you do on investigation?
It'd be an 18.
An 18? Nobody knows who King Giorgino is, but asking around a little bit, it's clear that a couple of the men have heard the name. And
What
you
about the
think
name?
through this way, you might be able to identify the men who roughed him over.
The secondary thing he's going for.
So why don't you guys take a few minutes to think about what you want to do to the bullies in your village while we take a 15-minute break. Go ahead and get your coffee, get your bagel. We'll reconvene about 4:35.
All right. I don't know about you, Evie, but I'm thinking we have the bullies be this dude's lackeys and learn to tend to the sheep.